Do ants carry diseases? We're going to be discussing it on this edition of the DIY Pest Control Podcast.
Welcome to the DIY Pest Control Podcast, where you get the best info for those who want to perform their own pest control. The DIY Pest Control Podcast is brought to you by Nature Pest. Nature Pest has been providing the finest in commercial and residential integrated pest management for structural, lawns, trees, shrubs, and mosquitoes with better control and less contamination at an affordable price. For more info, visit us at naturepest.com.
Hey, welcome to this edition of the DIY Pest Control Podcast. We're going to be discussing ants and as potential vectors of diseases. And most of the time when people think of diseases that pests carry, they think of roaches, they think of rodents, they think of birds. But very few people actually think and consider ants as potential vectors for diseases. And we have several studies that that have been published that we put into this article to help you understand whether ants can cause diseases. And there is enough evidence to suggest that yes, they can. But let me give you just a little scenario of what can happen. Ants, most insects are going to go where there's two things that they need, three things basically. They need food, they need shelter, and they need water. Every insect that I know in a structure potentially needs water. This is why when we're treating houses, we're treating apartments, we're treating businesses, we're looking for sources of water, because sources of water are going to tell us where insects are going to be. They're going to be making their nests very close to sources of water. The bathrooms and the kitchen in homes provide the best source of water. So this is why most of the time you find insects in the kitchens and the bathroom. It is not because there's food, abundance of food available for them in a bathroom, but because there's water. Now, in the case of ants, there is food available for them in places you wouldn't think. For instance, there's food in toothpaste. Certain products that have sugar, anything that has sugar, ants and the ants that feed on glucose are going to be attracted to it. So other insects like roaches and things like that, they're going to be in the bathrooms because there's also organic matter. Your toilet has decayed organic matter. If you look underneath that rim and those little crevices, stuff splashes up in there that you probably don't get out when you clean, and you don't see it, but it's in there and the insect can find it. So you're going to have insects in the bathrooms and in your kitchens because of that water and because of food. In the case of ants, the scenario would be very simple. An ant goes across the toilet, goes across an area that's been infected, goes across and gets to carry on its body a bacteria. Then later they walk across your toothpaste, they walk across your toothbrush, and that bacteria is on that surface, and you brush your teeth or you wash your hands or whatever, and potentially can transmit a disease to you. It's not a great alarm. It's not a great concern right now. It's not, but there are finding a lot of these articles that we've put in an article in the American College of Allergy and Asthma and Immunology. There's a study there. Also, several studies in hospitals have been done for the ants being potential mechanical bacterial vectors. In urban areas, transportation of bacteria on ants has been found. So there is serious concern in the medical field about these ants transmitting diseases. So when you're doing pest control and you're thinking, well, ants aren't really a big deal, they're just ants. Well, you don't want them all over your food. You don't want them all over your toothbrush. You don't want them, anywhere where you're going to be eating something that an ant has collected. They'll go into your cereal, and most people will just think nothing of it. So, it is a concern. It's not an epidemic. It's not something that you need to panic over, but it is something that you should know about. And I think that that's the major issue, is communicating, the knowledge and the concern, so that you're better educated and able to respond, I think, more quickly than just say, it's just ants, not a big deal, and be able to take care of that problem, very quickly. So there's good notes here, guys. Check out this article that we wrote. We have good notes on the podcast for you to take a look at. And I hope that this helps you understand pests, understand how to control them in your home, and be more successful at doing your own pest control. Until next time, I'm Frank Hernandez.
Thank you for listening to the DIY Pest Control Podcast. Please remember that although Franklin Hernandez is a certified and licensed pest control operator in the state of Florida, the content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. You should consult your local and state government or cooperative extension service before performing any pest control service. Remember to always read and follow label directions, because the label is the law.